Odd. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me this morning to talk about talent maps. In the last webinar, we spoke about the development paths of 3 different people, and I suggested that we shouldn't be treating people the same. We should be treating people according to whom they are. And each person comes to the table with different talents, different behaviors, different CVs, different backgrounds, and as a result of which we should be quite careful about talent development. So this one takes that story a bit further, where we map people and create a measurement score. But first of all, let's start the webinar. So my name is Steve Rogers. It is a true story that I'm Captain America, obviously. I was asked last week what happens on Doomsday. And for those of you who are big fans of the series of Captain America, you'll know that that's one of the key questions which should be answered in the next movie, as far as I'm aware. I've been running this business for the last 18 years. I've been consulting for about 27 years. I'm fascinated by the waste of talent because there is so much potential in so many people, and yet we don't develop people according to their strengths. We try to push people into the wrong jobs, and as individuals, we tolerate bad careers for most of our lives. So our mission is to try and help our clients to put the right people in the right jobs, and for individuals to find the work that makes them stronger, better, more interested and passionate about life. Our client base is quite diverse. We've had the privilege of working in many parts of the world, and we've served small companies. We have one of our smallest clients has literally 3 staff members. We have a client with 4 or 5 staff members, and we also have clients with 18 or 20,000 staff members. So it really depends on the application. What I have found is that when I work with a passionate manager, we get interesting things done. As I said, we've worked in other parts of the world, sometimes remotely, for example, in Australia and China and Hong Kong and Israel and the UK, we've worked remotely. I've also physically worked there for quite a few years myself. And then I've had the privilege of traveling across Africa to serve different African countries in West, East, and Southern Africa. We have 5 services that we offer our clients. The first is to make sure that you hire the right people. So we go through a process of finding, assessing, and hiring people for our clients. That then leads to the next question is, do we have the right people in the right jobs inside the organization? And that was the foundation of our business when we started. This next question is, we have a dysfunctional team, or we have a good team or a bad team. How do we make sure we've got the right people in the team, and how do we build on individual strengths? And then this is a specialist service of ours, Right People, Right Sales, because in the sales environment, it's a critical part of business. If we're not selling, if we're not getting our product into the marketplace, then the business battles to do anything else. And so we focus on the quality of the sales team, the quality of sales management in order to help clients beat their sales targets. And then finally, a future question is, do we have the talent we need for the future? Are we developing the right people? Do we understand their potential? And how do we make sure that we optimize their development paths? So that's a little bit about us. Let's get to our case study. So last time we spoke about these 3 individuals. We called them Sabelo, Chantal, and Pramila. And we said that they were part of a team of people that was going through an annual talent mapping exercise. We concluded in that session that we need to combine evidence on the one side. So our job as consultants is to build evidence about people. We look at the role requirements, we look at performance data, the track record of the individual through their CV. We look at their behavior, their habits, their potential, their intelligence, and we build basically an hypothesis. So we say, we think this is what we see in this person. Then we talk to the manager. And in that management conversation, we're asking for the context. Tell us about this person in the context of your business, your department, your work. Number 2, what do you observe about this individual? What is your lived experience of this individual's performance, capacity, capability, attitude, citizenship in the business, their future, the way they operate, their levels of motivation. Those are the kinds of issues we talk to the manager about. And then obviously we ask for specific competencies, their appreciation of things like working with people, working in a team, going the extra mile, doing what's necessary, going above expectations, those kinds of questions. So we find this a very powerful combination. Our evidence that we build as a consulting company about the individual combined with the judgment of the management individual. And that's important because we can never be experts in your businesses. Your businesses are unique. Each business comes from a different sector. It has a different size. It has different types of politics, good and bad politics. Sometimes your environment can be frustrating or even toxic. Sometimes it can be very productive and supportive and positive. So we need to understand, where is this team, this function, this division, this company, where is it currently? And so we find these two bits of data, the evidence and the management judgment, very powerful. Now, last time when we spoke at the last webinar, we came to 3 different conclusions for people who are in the same job. So all 3 of these people are administrators, but they come with different talent. So Sabella, for example, on the left-hand side there, we saw a lot of talent. This individual's very young, and yet he's showing a lot of proactive capability. And the message then to the management team was, stretch him, even if he's young, stretch him, put him under pressure, focus him, make sure that he stays on track, because it's easy for a guy like this to become unfocused. Then for the second person, Chantal, and obviously these names are made up names, so they are real people, but we've changed their details. And in Chantal's case, it's about support. She's a more sensitive individual. She's a person who needs to understand where she is in the company. She needs to be stretched a little as well, but stretched with support, with structure. So she's a developing individual, also quite young. And then in the third case, this is a person who is older in the team. She is a steady contributor, and our job is to retain her. So to ask her, for example, to be developed as a manager, or to push her towards leadership, or to say that she should be growing in her career, simply creates a perception in her mind that she's not succeeding, that she's not a productive member of the team. But in actual fact, we often require salt of the earth people to be the steady contributors. And so our job is to retain them and to recognize them for what they do. Bottom line, if we look at this data, and obviously we do this across the entire company, good management requires us to treat each person as an individual. And there's far too much, especially in the corporate world, there's far too much painting of a brush with the same color. So we say, right, everybody should go on MDP training, or everybody should go on this training. And that's not often productive for the individuals. Now, where we're deviating from the last time's presentation was that last time we spoke about quite a lot of detail into what we found with those individuals. Today, I want to focus on how we map the data. And I'm hoping that you'll find this a useful methodology to use in your own companies. And if you want to, with pleasure, we can supply you with the templates, and you can play with the templates to use them in your company environments. So on the vertical axis, similar to what you would see in a 9-box grid, is performance. This is quite a common vertical position for performance. We look at 4 levels, and I'll explain why 4 shortly. But we start with poor. This is unsatisfactory performance. We move up to fair performance. There's some holes, there's some things this person could improve, but they do a fair job. And then we move to good performance. This person, generally speaking, meets their deadlines, meets their performance requirements. Then we go to the top level, excellent. These are the people who not only meet their deadlines, meet their performance criteria, but they exceed them. And they tend to do more than exceed. They tend to also provide or contribute to other parts of the business. They are the people who are asking others for work. They are the people who are offering their advice or support to other people in the business. They often operate as mentors. They often operate as the people who build the gees in the business of the organization. So that's the 4 levels. Now, why 4 levels? Why not traditionally 3 levels, 1, 2, 3, or alternatively the most common 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1 to 10? The reason I choose 4 is because I want to force the discussion into 2 groups. Either you are performing at a fair or poor level, or you are excellent or good. The problem with the middle one, number 3, is that average is a wonderful cop-out for us as managers. Yeah, you're pretty good. I like you. I think you're a good person. I'm going to give you a 3. So 3 out of 5 becomes where we place the person. My preference is to say, no, let's move away from average. Either force it down or force it up. Then on the horizontal axis, the topic is development. Either there is no development going on currently, this person is not doing anything specifically, or they are doing general development. So this individual is doing some kind of a course which they chose by themselves. The manager said, yeah, it's fine, do that course. It seems like a good idea. But there's no specific purpose for the course. And then role-specific development says, I am doing this because I've realized that Excel is a big part of my day and I'm not very good at that, so let me improve my Excel skills. If I'm a manager, I might join an MDP program to improve my management competencies. And then the last one is future role specific, which says we've identified this person for a future position. In order to get to that position, they need to do certain forms of training or coaching or mentoring to be able to rise into that position. So we identify what is the kind of development that an individual is doing. All right, so what that leads us to then is 2 axes. The telemap consists of performance on the vertical and development on the horizontal. We then fill that detail in with a 16-block grid. Now, I know that 16 blocks sounds like a lot of data, but it's necessary because we're working with 4 attributes on the left and 4 attributes across the bottom. The scoring system, you'll notice there's a scoring system that starts from 0 up to 100. The reason I use percentages is because we all know from school that if we got 50%, we passed. Fantastic. If we got 80%, we got a gold star. And if we got 65%, that was pretty good. If we got 25%, then we realized that we hadn't passed. So I like to convert the 4x4 scoring into a percentage because it's easy to understand. Now you'll notice if you look closely that the scores rise faster for performance, roughly 28% per level. Whereas coming across the page, the scores rise in percentages of about 5 point something, about 5.9 or something like that. And that's a calculation that we've done using a bit of help from AI to space this out on the basis of prioritizing performance. So if your performance rises, your score jumps quite quickly. But if you're developing yourself, it rises at a slower pace because we always emphasize performance. The reason we chose 5 times as the number, in other words, 28 is 5 times the growth of the development side, is because at that level, 44 jumps to 56, and that gave me a decent gap. If you bring this back to a 1-to-1 calculation, what happens is that this score sits at 67 and this score sits at 33. Now, there's a bit of arithmetic there. Don't worry about it now. But we chose 5-to-1 in order to create the gradual growth through the grid from 0 up to 100. We then allocate names to the chart. Bottom left, value risk. So here, the individual is a risk to themselves. They're not developing themselves and they're not performing particularly well. There's also a risk for the manager because this chart is the manager's chart. So there's a value risk for the manager if they don't move people out of this bottom left-hand corner. The second position is value investment. In value investment, the performance is still not where we want it, but we are investing in the development of the individual. If somebody, for example, is sitting here in this bottom right-hand corner, it means that we have identified that they should be in a different job and we are developing them for a different job. If somebody is sitting in this block over here, we are helping them to develop in their current position, and the aim is to rise from 11 to 39 to 67. Then in the top left-hand corner, we talk about a value plateau. So this person is performing nicely, we're happy, things are working, the performance is good or excellent, but they're not currently developing. They might have finished some development last year, they decided to take a break this year. Sometimes people, for example, go on maternity leave or they take a sabbatical, and there's various reasons why there may be no development currently. So there's no value judgment here, but there is a plateau. You are sitting currently resting on the laurels of the past. The longer you do that, the more you run into the danger of becoming less competent or less performing. And then finally, on the top right-hand corner, value creation. So here, I'm developing myself and I'm performing. I'm creating value for my career and I'm creating value for the company. So those are, broadly speaking, the 4 quadrants. All right, now back to the data. So in order to complete the data for the talent map, what we do is we produce data like this over the conversations with the manager. Now, there's a lot of data on the screen, so let's break it down. We've broken it down into 3 groups of data. So let's go through them. The first group is the basic, straightforward introduction. What department are we talking about? This is an administration department. Who are the people? We spoke about Sabelo, Chantal, and Pramila. They are currently administrators, and the manager says the possible future role for Sabelo is to become a senior administrator, and I see potential for a supervisory and longer-term management career. In terms of Chantal, I see customer support as her potential, and one of the reasons for that was because she has strong people orientation. In the assessments that we did, there was a strong presence of her preference to work with people, and she has a nice, friendly, outgoing personality. So customer support could be a logical step from administration. Then for Pramila, we said that she is an administrator. She's got good capacity as an administrator. We don't necessarily see a management path for her, but she likes to deepen her skills and deepen her contribution. So a senior administration role might be the way to go. Then the manager said to us, well, for this position, the kind of development I'm looking at is a supervisory development program, maybe some work on the company software system to get to a more advanced level. For Chantal, we decided that customer service training would be useful, and the same thing for Pramila. In fact, for Pramila, we could also add some of the company software system training. Obviously, I'm kind of skimming over the surface of the discussion, but that's where the discussion goes when we sit with the managers. So that's the first chunk of data. The second chunk of data is then to say, where does this development sit? So are we talking about general development? So for example, if Sabelo goes off and does a BCom, a general BCom, that is not relevant to his current job title of administrator, right? It's relevant to a future position. So, sorry, not a future position. It's relevant to a future career, but there's no particular job title. So it doesn't sit over here at the moment. It sits in general. But the company software system, getting more advanced training in that is relevant for his current role. Then for Chantal, this is also relevant. We want her to get more service training so that she can move into the customer-facing part of the business. And she's already doing some of this naturally by default. We want to help her to improve the way she does that. And in fact, if she goes further into customer service training, that might also become a future role development as well. And then for Pramila, there was a preference because of personal circumstances to wait until next year to do the work she wants to do. And that's fine, no problem. If people have personal circumstances that need to be dealt with, for example, I might be busy with 3 kids, I might be busy moving my house, I might have family issues, I might be busy doing something, then of course we accept that people have things to do in their personal lives, and so she will be in that quadrant for the time being. So that's the second discussion. What is the development, and does the manager appreciate what these people are trying to do and where it fits? Okay. Then the third piece of data is the performance score. So here we've got the development at level 3, 3, and 1 from the previous slide. And then we've got a performance score, 4.1, 2.4, and 3.5. That automatically translates into a quadrant on the talent map. In this case, 15, 7, and 9. Again, don't worry too much about the arithmetic here. It's not too important for this discussion, but that means a score of 94, 39, and 56 for these 3 people, with a straightforward simple average of 63%. In the case of Pramila, she's on a value plateau. Chantal is investing in her current position, and Sabelo is creating value for himself and the company. So that's the third tranche of data. And then that translates onto the map. And so we can see that Chantal is sitting over there. If she wants to change her score and increase it, as the manager, I need to move her up into this level of performance, or I need to move her into future role-specific development. Preferably, I'm going to aim to move her into that position. In Pramila's case, I'm going to motivate her to either move across to doing some role-specific training over time, or I'm going to try and move her into excellent performance. As the manager, I have to answer the question, what is the difference between Chantal's fair performance, Pramila's good performance, and Sabelo's excellent performance? Do I clearly, as the manager, understand what's going on here? It's too often the case that a performance score is a bit of a sort of a thumbs up. Yeah, I think this person is a 1, 2, or 3, or 4. But when it comes to differentiating between different people in the team, do I really understand what's going on? So the talent map is designed to say, does it make sense for me that Sabelo sits in that position? Does it make sense that Pramila is there and is Chantal is there? Do these positions make sense? If they do, then we're good, and the score is 63%. Now, we call this a talent density score. I'm busy looking for a better name for this. But basically, we're wanting to measure the development and the performance of individuals, and this score is for the manager. Each individual score is for the individual, but this score is measuring the management, the capacity or the capability of the manager to manage people. Okay, so it's been a short session. If there are any questions that you'd like to ask about, or if you'd like to question anything about the talent map, or think about your own personal situation, then please let's talk, let's have a conversation and see where we get to.